Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the Booze.
For the Booze.
For the Booze.
Early morning edition.
Yes.
Not even really early morning. It's almost noon, but
It
still.
is, yes.
It's early morning for us.
Yes. We don't normally record during the day. This is like, what, the second one, I think, that we've recorded?
Yeah. That's so weird.
Yes.
The sun's out.
Yes.
The children are playing.
They are. They're running around out there somewhere.
It's very strange for me. But we are back for another edition of Spooky Places and Stuffs.
All the spooks.
But hey, we're doing island life right now. So
Yes. Relax and chill.
We're on to a second island, and it's here in sunny Florida.
Yay.
Yeah, sunny Florida. Wait, I think of islands, and I think Hawaii or the Keys, honestly.
Yeah. Just like the islands floating around out there somewhere.
And this is a key. It's just not the Keys that we're all used to.
Okay.
It's a different key here in Florida, and it's I know this place. I've been to this place, and for some reason, even though I knew the name, I've been there. I just never thought of it as a key.
Okay.
And it is. We're going to Cedar Key in Florida.
Oh.
This place was actually made, I think, pretty famous. I mean, it's got a lot of history, as we're going to find out. There's a lot of history. Mm-hmm. But it was made famous mostly by Jimmy Buffett.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And I had honestly never heard of this place. And this place it's so old. It is so old. And it has such a long and cool history and so many amazing stories to it that I cannot believe I've never heard of this. Being that I grew up like an hour away from it. Mm-hmm. If that. I don't even think it's that far.
Yeah.
But today, do you know where we're going today?
I mean, I kind of do.
All right, I got this.
Okay.
Today, we're going to Florida, Cedar Key, to visit the historical and haunted
Island Hotel.
Oh.
Like I said, this place has an amazingly long history, and some crazy things have happened there, and it is apparently a staple of this area, and I've never heard of it, and I think that's pretty interesting considering everything I read about it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of it either. Like, I know Cedar Key.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I grew up in Florida, so, like, I definitely have heard of Cedar Key. I'm not sure if I've ever been there, but
I've definitely been there.
I don't know if I have.
Well,
But the Island Hotel, definitely not.
you're definitely going to learn about it today because there is a lot of history and a lot of stories that go along with it.
Awesome. Well, good thing you love history.
Yeah, good thing. This was a good amount. All right, well,
Well, I'm excited.
I say let's get into it.
All right, let's do it.
While evidence suggests human occupation as far back as 500 BC, the first maps of the area date back to 1542, when it was labeled Las Islas Sabinas by a Spanish cartographer. An archaeological dig at Shell Mound, 9 miles north of Cedar Key, found artifacts dating back to 500 BC in the top 10 feet of the 28-foot-tall mound. Followers of William Augustus Bowles, self-declared Director General of the state of Muskogee, built a watchtower in the vicinity of Cedar Key in 1801. The tower was destroyed by a Spanish force in 1802. The period leading up to the First Seminole War, the British subjects Alexander Arbuthnot and Robert Ambrister used the Cedar Keys to deliver supplies to the Seminoles. The Cedar Keys may have been a refuge for escaped slaves in the early 1820s, and an entry point for the illegal slave trade later that decade. During the Second Seminole War, the United States Army established Fort No. 4 on the mainland adjacent to the Cedar Keys. In 1840, General Zachary Taylor requested the Cedar Keys to be reserved for military use for the duration of the war, and that Seahorse Key be permanently reserved for a lighthouse. In 1840, General Walker Keith Armistead, who had succeeded Zachary Taylor as commander of the United States troops in the war, ordered construction of a hospital on what had become known as Depot Key. Cantonment Morgan was established on nearby Seahorse Key by 1841 and used as a troop deployment station and as a holding station for Seminoles who had been captured or who had surrendered until they could be sent west. A hurricane with a 27-foot storm surge struck the Cedar Keys on October 4, 1842, destroying Cantonment Morgan and causing much damage on Depot Key. Some Seminole leaders had been meeting with Army officers at Depot Key to negotiate their surrender or retreat to a reservation in the Everglades. After the hurricane, the Seminoles refused to return to the area. Colonel William J. Worth had declared the war to be over in August 1842, and Depot Key was abandoned by the Army after the hurricane. Sometime between 1859 and 1860, the structure that is now the Island Hotel was built. Records indicate that Major John Parsons bought the property in 1859. It is likely the construction was finished the following year. The Florida pioneers who settled Cedar Key made the building to last. They mixed oyster shell, limestone, and sand to pour walls 10 inches thick. Massive 12-inch oak beams were framed in the basement to support the wooden structure. Their workmanship has withstood the ravages of time for more than 140 years. The building has survived innumerable hurricanes, floods, storms, and other disasters. The floors are even uneven. The building contracts and expands with the seasons and has all the, quote, aches and pains of an elderly person. Development of Cedar Key had begun in 1859 in anticipation of the prosperity that completion of the Florida Railroad was expected to bring to the port on the Gulf. Major Parsons and his partner and co-owner Francis E. Hale were among businessmen hoping to take advantage of the economic opportunity when they opened Parson and Hale's General Store. Unfortunately, the outbreak of the Civil War forced an abrupt halt to the Cedar Key development. Union troops considered it a strategic port. They invaded the town and burned down almost every building that wasn't needed to house troops to store supplies. The fact that Parsons and Hale's General Store survived the war lends credence to the strong probability that it served as a barrack and warehouse for the Yankees. It may have been used by Confederate troops as well during the times they managed to retake Cedar Key, since building owner Major Parsons was commander of a detachment of Confederate volunteers defending the Gulf against Federal gunboats and troops. The war's end meant the beginning of prosperous times for Cedar Key. Parsons and Hale reopened their general store once again. It became a successful and enduring commercial establishment in the area. Items for sale included furniture, dry goods, groceries, naval stores, produce, fuel oil, hardware, building supplies, and even agricultural implements. Hale and Parsons were also shipping agents and were involved in the fishing and turtle business. Offices of the Customs House and the Cedar Key Post Office were also located in the general store during this time. In 1867, the great botanist, naturalist, and conservationist John Muir completed his 1,000-mile walk from Louisville, Kentucky to Cedar Key. He would contract malaria and remained in Cedar Key for several weeks while recovering from his illness. Muir's journal contains accounts of life while in Cedar Key, including a description of a general store, perhaps that of Parson and Hales. Quote,
I stepped into a little store which had a considerable trade in quinine and alligator and rattlesnake skins, and inquired about shipping, means of travel, etc.
Unquote. It is unknown when Parsons and Hale's general store began taking orders and selling meals. However, a reference on a real estate map from 1884 notes, quote, restaurant and furnished rooms, unquote. It is likely that the downstairs continued to be used for commerce and the upstairs were to be used to accommodate guests. One of those guests may have been President of the United States of America. There is an unsubstantiated story that President Grover Cleveland visited Cedar Key upon his return from Cuba sometime during the early 1890s. Cedar Key was then a major port and steamships frequently made runs to and from Havana. The president is reported to have spent the night at Parsons and Hale's. In 1896, a devastating hurricane struck Cedar Key. Much of the town was destroyed, and Parsons and Hales general store was severely damaged. It was the beginning of bad luck for the town. A subsequent fire and the collapse of the cedar industry marked a period of economic stagnation and decline that lasted until after World War II. Francis Hale, one of the two original owners, would die in 1910. 4 years later, Langdon Parsons, a nephew of the original owner John Parsons, would sell the building. After an intermediate owner, it was acquired in 1915 by a Simon Feinberg, a businessman with properties in Gainesville, Ocala, Lake Butler, and Dunellen. It was Feinberg who converted Parsons and Hales General Store into a hotel. He would name it the Bay Hotel. Much of the interior reconstruction included the stairway, which was done after Feinberg's purchase between 1915 and 1920. A second-floor balcony was added around the south and west sides of the hotel. The hotel was managed by Mr. and Mrs. W.L. Markham, who moved from the White House Hotel. They remained until 1918 when they moved to manage the hotel in summer. Feinberg died at the hotel on May 11, 1919, under somewhat mysterious circumstances. He had come to Cedar Key to collect the rent from his manager, who had a lease agreement to operate the hotel. These were the days of prohibition. One story that is told is that Feinberg, a religious man, had been mostly unhappy to discover that his manager was operating a whiskey still in the attic. To placate his boss, the manager had treated Feinberg to a large and sumptuous dinner. Feinberg retired for the night and would never wake up the next morning. Harold Nabber, one of the later owners, found some of the copper pipe from the still in the annex roof when he had some work carried out. He says that the pipe work was hidden behind a false roof about 12 inches below the proper roof. He could not recall if the workmen left the pipe in place or removed it. During the next 2.5 decades, the hotel passed through the hands of a number of owners and managers, including J.B. and Pauline Witt, and later a George T. Lewis. It was known by a variety of names, including the Cedar Key Hotel. Another owner, Mr. Fowler, called it Fowler's Wood. A Mrs. Wilda Finlayson had a millinery store downstairs during the 1920s. At different times, it also housed the post office and customs house. A Mr. Crittenden managed the hotel for a while in the 1930s, and it was rumored that it may have functioned as a brothel during his tenure. The Depression would, of course, later hit Cedar Key. The timber mills were destroyed in the 1896 hurricane. The railroad stopped running to Cedar Key in 1932. The wooden bridges linking the island to the mainland were often washed out, and roads were often impassable. Cedar Key was virtually isolated. The hotel was among businesses that would suffer hard times. The bank would foreclose on one owner. Another owner may have tried to burn it down. The hotel was hit with a rash of fires, 3 within 1 week. Fortunately, the fire department was just across the street. Volunteers managed to douse the flames before much damage was done, and of course, arson was expected. When Bessie and Loyal Gibby Gibbs arrived in Cedar Key in 1946, they found an ancient, dirty, and dilapidated building. Rumors were that it was being used as a brothel. Bessie was reluctant to even stay the night and spent the night in a straight-back chair, refusing to sleep on a dirty mattress. However, the friendliness of the people and the charm and possibilities of the hotel soon won her over. The first thing Gibby and Bessie did was to scrub the building from top to bottom. They renamed the hotel the Island Hotel and then set about establishing a unique style and reputation that was to grow and endure for 27 years. Gibby was a bartender, and the hotel bar quickly became a gathering place for locals and visitors of all kinds. In 1948, the Gibbs arranged with artist Helen Tooker to spruce up their bar in return for room and board. She painted the famous King Neptune painting. She also painted the wall murals upstairs with her daughter, Helen Paramore. Helen selected a nautical theme in keeping with Cedar Key's link to the ocean. Bessie concentrated her efforts on the dining room and quickly established the hotel restaurant as the place to come for fresh seafood in the area. And she would set very high standards. The seafood, vegetables, and other ingredients had to be extremely fresh, often just off the boat or out of the garden. The portions were hearty and generally served with a smile, although on occasion, Bessie was known to chastise those who failed to clean their plate. Quote,
"After I worked so hard to cook you a nice dinner, I expect you to eat it. Now eat those vegetables."
Recipes created by Bessie and her cook Katherine Johnson, known as, quote, Big Buster, were widely praised. Bessie's famous heart of palm salad remains a popular menu to this day. During Bessie's reign, the hotel attracted the famous and powerful. Claude Kirk was among Florida governors and other powerful politicians who made the weekend trek from Tallahassee to talk business at the hotel, enjoy the seafood and strong drinks prepared in the Neptune Bar. Famous names appearing on the register included those of author Pearl Buck, singers Vaughn Monroe and Tennessee Ernie Ford, and actresses Frances Langford and Myrna Loy. Actor Richard Boone, famous for the popular television series Paladin, even stayed at the hotel. He would write in the mornings and drink in the evenings, holding court in the Neptune Bar. In 1950, Hurricane Easy struck Cedar Key, battering the island with winds, rain, and high seas for 17 straight hours. The storm blew off the roof of the hotel, filling the upstairs rooms with water. The stains on the King Neptune painting in the bar were caused by water draining from upstairs. Gibby would die in 1962. He was cremated and his ashes were placed behind the bar for a day while Bessie and friends waited for the tide to change so they could scatter Gibby's remains at sea. When a visitor commented that it was rather odd, Bessie is said to have responded, quote,
"Why not? That's where he was happiest."
In 1973, Bessie Gibbs, after suffering poor health, sold the Island Hotel to Charles and Shirley English, ending perhaps the most famous era in the history of the building. Bessie would continue to live in Cedar Key and would die in a house fire in 1975. She was cremated, and in keeping with her wishes, her ashes were taken to sea by her family and friends and spread out upon the waters of the Gulf that she had so dearly loved. After changing hands a few more times, it was sold to Marcia Rogers in 1980. Rogers was a New England educator who stumbled upon Cedar Key while searching for lifestyle changes. As she would describe it, she was looking for, quote, "a place in the sun, an oasis out of the vast lane," unquote. Phrases that were often later quoted by travel writers trying to capture the ambience of the Island Hotel during the 80s. Florida songwriter Jimmy Buffett would visit the Island Hotel often during these years. He sometimes would give impromptu concerts in the Neptune Bar. During one arts festival, he sat on the balcony and serenaded people passing along Main Street. A reference to Cedar Key in mystery writer John D. MacDonald's fictional character Travis McGee is among lyrics from the song Incommunicado on Buffett's Coconut Telegraph album. After Marcia Rogers, Tom Sanders and his English wife Allison bought the hotel in January 1992. Sanders had first visited the Island Hotel in 1971 when Bessie Gibbs owned it. He had returned many times over the years, and it was on a chance visit in 1991 to show the hotel and Cedar Key to Allison that they learned Marcia had put the building up for sale. Living in Tokyo, Tom was a journalist with a television news agency, and Allison worked for a marketing research firm. They were motivated by a mutual dislike of winters in the United Kingdom and a desire to own their own business and a love and respect for the venerable Island Hotel. Many changes were made over the years to come. While the hotel remained clean and comfortable, it did not offer some of the amenities to be found in modern hotels and motels. It is intentional that the rooms do not contain such distractions as televisions or telephones. The objective of the owners was to provide a place for guests to get away from the strains and stress of the contemporary life and to renew the art of conversation perhaps to read a book or play a game of chess or checkers, to drink a margarita on the hotel balcony while watching the sunset, or have a romantic candlelit dinner in the restaurant. Again, after changing owners a few times and being marked a historical site, on October 29th, 2002, the current owners fired all the staff and boarded up the old establishment. They loaded a U-Haul and headed back to Texas, and no one really knew why. At the beginning of November 2002, Don and Tony Cousins were appointed by the court as receivers. They were authorized to reopen the hotel and get the business up and running again. In January 2004, Don and Tony Cousins sold the hotel and restaurant to Andy Bear and his wife, Stanley. In Stanley's words, quote,
"We returned to the States in August 2003 and began a search for that one last quiet, undeveloped spot that might still be found in Florida. We stumbled onto Cedar Key and the Island Hotel. We immediately knew we had found what we were looking for. The wonderfully quaint island and the manner in which they welcomed us had been a bonus beyond our wildest dreams. We were greeted every day by friendly, smiling faces. Our first few weeks were spent giving the hotel a facelift. We painted the downstairs lobby and replaced worn-out furniture throughout the hotel. A new bath was added for room number 27. The hotel quickly came back to life. And I do believe even the ghosts are smiling. It is as if they spent the day at a beauty parlor. Our staff is excited about the new look, and they have reason to be proud of their hotel again."
And that's kind of where we end up today. The hotel is still an operating business, even with 140 years of history.
That is a very extensive amount of people that have owned that place, and so very many hurricanes.
Well, much like Florida, I mean, it's hurricanes here, you know, and that is the majority of kind of what takes out things around here.
Absolutely.
And this place was no exception. But above and beyond that, in the story, there was a lot of ties to war and the natural disasters and just time where a lot of people have died here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it has a very nice history. Like, this wasn't a place where people were tortured or murdered, for the most part.
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a kind of a normal history, but like a nice normal history
Compared to what we normally read.
Well,
absolutely.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, people weren't filleted in the basement.
Yeah.
You know, like
Thank God.
some of the places we talk about, like,
Yeah.
you know, the Lori or something.
Thank God.
But it's a cool history. It's just a cool looking little hotel. There is a video that I found. It's kind of dramatic, but I do want to play it because I talk to some of the employees at the hotel, or an employee, and I just want to play it so you can get an idea of like what the people working there say about it. I'll play that at the end. But it just looks like a cool little homely hotel on Cedar Key, and it looks nice.
Yeah.
It looks quaint.
I think I really enjoyed like going through the owners and how much love that they put into this place.
It seems that every person who ever owned this place had a deep love for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
A deep love. And I skipped over some of the owners. That's not even all of them.
I could tell. It seemed like there was lots left out. And I mean, you covered so many.
There wouldn't have been enough time to keep talking because there were much more extensive stories. And I'll just add this in as a thing now. The Marcia, that owner, she apparently changed some stuff that really made the town mad at her.
Oh.
And when she died, they cremated her and put her in a place in a way that was to like shame her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. That sucks. Yes. And it's awful. But that kind of brings about how the neighborhood and the surrounding people feel about this place. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think that sets a really great tone.
The chef there, her last name sounds very close to our last name, which I thought was interesting. But I'm not going to say on here what my last name is. But it is cool. And if you really want to know, just look it up. But she, as far as I could tell, I did look, I'm pretty sure she is still the chef to this day. And she is highly, loved within the community.
Wow, that's amazing.
Like they say, people who go there and eat say it is the best food they've ever had. I found a few that were like, it's the worst. But you work, you do restaurant work.
Yeah.
Those people are going to
can't please everybody.
But people seem to love her and what she does in there. And like she was actually the cook from a time before.
Right.
And then when the hotel changed hands and all that, I think she didn't work there for a while and then they got her to come back.
Wow.
And
that's really cool.
There's a lot of really neat stories about this place, and we're going to listen to those in your part, okay? But this place has this. I didn't know what to expect when we did this place.
Right.
And I'm glad we did it. I really am glad we did it because I really like this one.
It's different for sure. Already, it's just different, and it's almost got like a lovable feel.
It does.
You know?
It absolutely does.
I don't know. I think that's really cool.
This place seems very lovable.
Yeah.
And I would love to go.
Me too.
But I think we should get on to some story time. What do you think?
Oh, some spooky story time?
Yep.
Okay.
Like we do. But, of course, after these ads.
And now, welcome back to the show. The Island Hotel is a historic inn located on beautiful Cedar Key. What was once a natural island became a place of developmental interest during the mid-1850s. Major Parsons and Francis Hales saw a financial opportunity and purchased the property there in 1859. Business seemed fine until the Civil War began, and Cedar Key was viewed as an easy entrance point by the Union. When the war was over, the two business partners reopened their store with a desire to prosper. Nobody is quite sure when they decided to make an expansion, but by 1884, the general store included a restaurant and rooms for rent. Thus, the Island Hotel was born. Today, the Island Hotel is alive and well. Some might even say the establishment is too alive. According to a handful of guests, the hotel is haunted by something that definitely goes bump in the night. Along with the ghosts of two former owners, a young African-American boy, a Civil War soldier, and two Native Americans, many guests claim to have seen the apparition of a woman in rooms 27 and 28. During the Great Depression, the Island Hotel survived as a speakeasy and brothel. According to local legend, a shy, inexperienced prostitute was killed one night and now haunts the hotel. A man and his wife believed they were visited by this mysterious dead girl while staying in room 28 of the hotel. It was their 5th wedding anniversary, and the couple decided to celebrate by staying at Cedar Key for a long weekend. They had caught wind that the hotel was haunted, but did not know room 28 was a favored location by a spirit. Quote,
"After a romantic dinner, my wife and I spent time lounging in our room and eventually fell asleep. I had a couple of scotches with dinner and was admittedly inebriated when we finally went to bed. Anyway, I woke up in the middle of the night, still slightly intoxicated. I felt my wife wrap her arms around me. She started kissing my cheek and my neck very affectionately. I murmured in approval and wrapped my arms around her when I suddenly heard my wife yell out my name and turn on a light. My arms were still up, and yet she was all the way across the room, with her hand on the lamp. How did you get over there so fast when I was just touching you?"
the man recalled. The conversation between the two would go back and forth. He would go on to tell her exactly what happened. and she seemed incredibly creeped out the rest of the night. The next morning, the wife would insist on finding a new hotel to stay at. While she went on to speak with the concierge, the man said he was looking out at the water, and that's when he saw the apparition of a woman standing on the beach no more than 20 feet away. Quote,
I don't know how I could tell it was my late night visitor, but it was,
the man said, and she disappeared within a few minutes. Another story from a woman online named Kathy states,
quote, my husband and I stayed in room 34, and I'm a believer. He wasn't at the time. That night, after midnight, my husband asked me if I saw the white cloud or white smoke go through our room. I said no, and he insisted he saw it. I believe him because I awoke from sleep and just missed it. Then I couldn't get back to sleep. About 3:17, I woke up and saw lights under the door and wanted to check in the parlor, but I couldn't get my husband to go with me. I was too scared to check it out, but I'm sure something was going on.
end quote. Another story from a person named Chris states, quote,
I stayed in room 23 and had a bottle of sunscreen just fall off the nightstand at 11:55 at night. I was lying in bed playing with my phone, heard the noise and looked over at the sunscreen was rolling towards the corner of the room.
end quote. Yet another story from a woman named Kathy states, quote, my family stayed in rooms 27 and 28 back in 2003. We experienced hearing footsteps and the sounds of furniture moving or things dragging across the floor all night long. We got up several times to check the common area, and nothing was there. It was truly spooky. I thought I would be somewhat comfortable with paranormal activity since I knew no one had ever been hurt by the entities at the hotel, but my reaction was different while in the midst of activity. Our overhead fan was rotating, although it had not been turned on. And once we left the room, my husband forgot his camera. We went back to get it, and the cupboard doors were standing open to the nightstand chest. He tested the doors swinging, and it did not seem able to open by itself. Must have had some help. Chilling. End quote. In 1914, the building was sold to a man named Simon Feinberg, who turned it into the Bay Hotel. Feinberg hired a man named Markham to manage the hotel, but soon became displeased with him when it was reported that he was running an illegal still out of the attic. They met over dinner to discuss the problem, with Markham professing his innocence. Feinberg retired for the night and was found dead in his bed come the next morning. The consensus was that he had died of food poisoning. It is said his restless spirit walks the halls at night, popping up suddenly and startling guests. Another guest who is said to have checked in but has never been able to leave is that of the Southern Army private who stands guard at the end of the hall on the second floor at sunrise. He is visible for only a second or two, standing at attention in full Confederate uniform. There is an old trap door that leads to a dark basement beneath the hotel, supposedly haunted by the ghost of a child. An old tale says that it is that of a small African-American boy, about 9 years old, who was hired towards the end of the Civil War to do errands around the hotel. The owner thought he saw him pilfering one day and chased him. The quick-footed young man ducked down the stairs and disappeared before the owner could even make it to the door. Disappeared was right. He was never seen alive again. About a year later, When workmen were cleaning out an old cistern in the basement, they discovered the skeleton of a child in the bottom of it. The young boy hides in the recesses still and peeks out once in a while just to see who is there. There is, of course, the ghost that no one is really surprised about, and that is former owner Bessie Gibbs. She and her husband lived in and operated the hotel for over 25 years. The couple were devoted to each other and the hotel that they loved. It seems that she is also the most active ghost and occasionally cantankerous. She has locked guests out of their room, slammed doors, and sometimes rearranges the furniture. She seems to have maintained that proprietary interest in her hotel. One of her favorite spots to sit and relax was on the second floor porch swing, and her ghost is often spotted sitting there, still. Some time ago, a seance was held at the hotel in an attempt to contact Miss Bessie, and it was discovered that at least 13 spirits reside in the safety of the hotel's walls. In addition to the ghost noted above, who seems to be the most active, there have been sightings of several Native Americans, an old fisherman, and an unidentified tall, thin man. A TripAdvisor review from Deborah ATL says, quote,
Island Hotel has a long and interesting history. It has been a general store, brothel, speakeasy, post office, a hospital during the Civil War, and now a charming hotel. The thick tabby walls and wide plank floors just ooze history. The furnishings are nice and in keeping with the old-time feel. Sleigh beds, antique dressers, claw-footed tubs, upper balcony with rocking chairs, and a wicker porch swing. The atmosphere is wonderful until the sun goes down and the ghosts come out. I have stayed here twice and was not able to get a decent night's sleep either time. I'm not particularly psychic or into the paranormal, but this place made me a believer. On my first visit, I woke up freezing with a very uneasy feeling that someone was in the room. On the second visit, I felt the bed move, as if someone got up. I heard footsteps that just trailed off into nowhere. I woke up a second time, hearing a woman whisper my name close to my ear. My cousin in the next room said she felt someone in the room all night and did not want to turn the light off. When she finally drifted to sleep, she was awakened by the bed shaking. We both heard a baby cry off and on all night, but when we mentioned it the next morning, we were told that there were no guests with a baby. Cold spots, knocks on the floor with no one there. It's just plain spooky.
End quote. TJF 4569 writes, quote,
I stayed here with my family. Loved it as soon as I laid eyes on it. True old school Florida hotel, knee deep in the middle of nowhere. Dad had stayed here before and took me to the bar and showed me holes in the walls where it had been shot. I guess back in the day, it didn't have the charm it holds now. Take time to read the book in your room. It tells you the history of each room and the ghost that may haunt it. I got a kiss in the night from a murdered prostitute. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Jimmy Buffett once played a mini set on the second floor balcony. Had I known this, I would have brought my 6th string. The food in the restaurant is out of this world. Would love to go back. I think I just might have to.
End quote. Topic Tripper writes, quote,
We booked a room for 3 nights at the Island Inn in March. It lives up to its name. The innkeepers were very nice and welcoming and made you feel like family. We ate the wonderful included breakfast in the dining room each morning, and they never missed a beat with the eggs done to perfection, and the French toast everyone speaks of did not disappoint. I had read about paranormal activity in the hotel, and did have an experience the first night. Just as I was about to drift to sleep, I heard a woman's voice, no farther than the nightstand away. I did not feel afraid at all, since the voice seemed kindly. Not sure what was said, I didn't experience anything else the next 2 nights.
End quote. And one more review from Les31 says, quote,
We wanted to stay in a haunted B&B, so we booked a room at the Island Hotel. They gave us number 23, which we stayed in for 2 nights. Yes, there is something to this paranormal stuff, because we had definite activity, especially after dark. Nothing evil or malicious, just playful and curious. Both nights, we heard my necklace being placed back down on the table beside the sink. We were in bed at the time. We saw several shadows at various times, and one night we woke up cold because the covers were pulled away off the bed. Because there is no TV or radio in the room, I chose to take my own radio, both nights while listening to music to sleep by. The station would have static from time to time, although it was crystal clear in the daytime. Definitely recommended. Not a scary place at all. Playful ghosts.
End quote. And that's the Island Hotel in Cedar Key, reportedly haunted by 13 ghosts. Investigators even claim that Bessie's room is probably a portal to another dimension. They also believe that the front of the hotel is another location with strong paranormal activity. Lights will flicker, doors open and close without a known cause. There are always cold spots, breezes, and drafts without reason, and some even report the pervasive feeling of being watched or followed when visiting. The Fox Network television series Haunted Inns and Mansions filmed the segment at the hotel in 1999. Whether a local Fox affiliate anywhere in the United States plays this episode, they say reservations spike as people search for proof that ghosts actually do exist. And it seems that many find what they are looking for at the historic Island Hotel.
There it is, the Island Hotel.
That was a really cool, ghostly...
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
There are tons of stories and tons of personal experiences on top of it.
I like that we got kind of like new aged, like stories from people from, I like doing the TripAdvisor ones. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It just makes it seem like, super real people or...
I will always look those up because I feel like there's more authenticity to those because they're not posted on like a paranormal website or something.
Right.
They're just like TripAdvisor reviews.
Yeah,
they could write
absolutely.
anything they wanted.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
they choose to write their paranormal experiences. But I will have to say, like, I want to go there. I want to bring my guitar. I want to stay in that room. And I want to serenade pretty girls walking down the street.
No.
Oh, okay, fine. But I would like to stay there. Just to check it out. And Cedar Key is pretty cool. I'm not big on the Gulf Coast, honestly. I prefer the East Coast a bit more.
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, because it's the ocean with the rolling waves and everything.
I've been to the West Coast a few times, and
Florida. You've been to the West Coast of Florida.
Yes, of Florida. I've never been to the West Coast of the United States.
Soon.
But, yes, very soon. I'm excited. But I definitely prefer the East Coast.
Yeah.
I don't know if many people are like that, or maybe it's just like Floridians prefer one side to the other. I don't know, because they're different.
Well, yeah, because the Gulf Coast is still the ocean, of course, but it's more like the feel of a giant lake.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's like the beaches part of it is a lot more, at least where I went, is rocky.
Yeah.
It's very rocky and weird, not like super sandy, broke up shells.
Yeah.
Like you think of a beach, and it's weird,
I
don't like it.
It's the rolling waves, that's why.
Yeah.
But I do have a thing I want to play. I found this. Now, the thing, I'm probably going to cut some of it out. The listener won't notice kind of what I cut out, but it is pretty dramatic. But it has stuff about the hotel, and it's got people who work at the hotel speaking, so I want to play some of that.
Okay.
I haven't watched it. I watched like a very short amount of it. But I'd like to play this, and maybe it'll give us some more insight on maybe what the people who work there have to say to this day. But this is on a YouTube channel called Travel Stories. And I'm not going to read the description because it is really long, and it basically covers a lot of history. I'll read the first line. It says, established in 1859, the Island Hotel and Restaurant is on the National Register of Historic Buildings. It is said that the old mansion is haunted by at least 13 spirits. Wow. So basically stuff we already know.
Nice.
So let's check this out and see what they have to say.
All right, let's do it.
We had a couple of visitors. There was a mom and a daughter. The mom was probably about 87 years old, and they stayed in room 28. And the mom needed help getting in and out of the bed. So at their night here, the daughter hears her mom talking. Her mom's talking to some woman telling her to quit. The daughter says she saw a glow by the window. But eventually the mom hopped out of bed and was talking to this glow and followed it all the way out into the lobby, and then came back and hopped in bed and went to sleep.
Room 27 and 28 are haunted by a murdered prostitute. I spent the night in eerie room 28. I woke up from a strange dream to the smell of perfume. In the air was a fragrance I have never smelled before.
Some other guests stayed in room 33, and the woman came out to take a shower, put her clothes on the bed, and went to the bathroom to take a shower. And when she came out to get something, her clothes were on the floor. So she picks the clothes up, puts them back on the bed, forgetting what she went into the bedroom for, and goes back into the bathroom. And then comes back into the bedroom, and the clothes are on the floor again.
The ghosts that you have allegedly viewed at the Island Hotel, what I tell you is these are stories that I can substantiate. I have history of them. There was a man here in Cedar Key in the late 1880s, early 1890s by the name of Billy. And Billy was the son of a very, very prominent Levy and Lafayette County, which is the next county across the river in Swanee. Today it's Dixie County. He was the son of a very prominent person. He was a legislator, represented this area. He was a colonel in the Civil War. And Billy was a real bad boy. No two ways about it. Everything had to be his way. He had two brothers that he had browbeaten into doing everything he wanted. And in the late 1880s, early 1890s, Billy took over Cedar Key to the point where the vendors, the merchants, were packing up and leaving. And there was a woman that he set his eyes on, but she was married. And he pursued her so fervently that she threw herself out of the second-story window of the Island Hotel.
It is said that a small black boy lives at the basement of the Island Hotel, where he drowned before the end of the Civil War.
Be careful on the ladder here.
According to the cook, the boy appears in the kitchen from time to time and stares at the kitchen helpers. Let's go to the basement and see where the boy drowned.
They used to sell illegal whiskey out of here. Just kind of, you got to kind of bend over here and don't grab this pipe. See all these sandbags and everything that that are piled up against the wall over here? Back, if you remember the invasion of the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Right. Well, they sandbagged the whole downstairs here so that when the missile started fly in. Everybody can come down here and get not nuked. So that's the story out here from all that. Now here's the cistern right here. You can look over there. Over here, he allegedly fell in here and drowned. And there's where the old boy drowned.
Well, we're looking for a ghost right now.
Well, okay, go ahead and shall I turn the lights out?
A couple days after that visit, there was a young couple who stayed in that room, and it was her birthday. And they had a balloon. It was a big plastic balloon. They had tied it to the suitcase banister and came down for dinner and went back up to go take pictures with the balloon, and the girl held the balloon and she could hear air coming out of it, and there was a slash mark about this big in the balloon. There was a couple who also stayed in that room and had brought a flashlight with them. The flashlight worked perfectly fine before, then all the lights went out and they tried to turn the flashlight on. The flashlight would not come on. Once the electricity came back on, they tried the flashlight and it worked perfect. Just little ghost stories, playing pranks. Nothing mean, just fun and games.
So that was interesting.
That was really cool.
It was.
Just to hear extra stories, especially from people who are there a lot. I don't know. That was really neat.
Before we get to the end of this and make our decision, I want to throw some things out there. First off, almost the entirety of my story actually came from the Cedar Key Island Hotel website.
Oh, okay.
And not one mention of a ghost was even on there, other than even the ghosts were happy, which was a quote from an owner, not the website claiming that it was haunted. Oh. And the reason I want to throw that out there is because all the claims of haunted or paranormal activity that come from this place are not from the hotel.
Right. They're from visitors.
They're from people who have stayed there.
Yeah.
They're from stories of the past. So I wanted to throw that out there just because this isn't like a lot of places that claim that they're haunted. This place really doesn't, like, they know the stories, but it's not a selling point for them.
Right. They're not trying to thrive on the paranormal
They don't advertise
aspect.
it. Yes,
right.
They don't advertise being haunted. So for me, that makes it feel more realistic because they're not trying to draw you in with this outlandish story of demons and stuff like a lot of places would.
Like, hey, we're haunted.
Yeah. So it's way different than the most places that we cover because they aren't leaning into it. They're not selling it. They want to be known
as the cute, quaint, nice little hotel.
It's like they say it's like it's like staying in a historical hotel, and that's their deal. But they do have stories. So
I like that.
It's very interesting.
Very.
It's very cool. And I know you got to go to work. So
I do.
I know.
I'm not even ready yet, and I almost have to leave.
I know. We're going to fast track this. So I guess with that being said, we've heard a lot of stuff, and we've talked about a lot of stuff. So it is now time to ask a question.
Is it real?
Well, other Stephen, let's give her the opportunity to answer your question. So what do you think, Megan?
I do think this place is haunted. I think, like we just talked about, I think they don't thrive on that side of things, and they have accounts just from a lot of people that actually stay there. A lot of actual people who have real experiences, and they're like, okay. And, and I like that they don't blast it all over, and it just makes it seem so much more real. And I think with the extensive history of war and, even going back Native Americans and even all the way up through the brothel and speakeasy times, like, it gives a vast array of spirits that could be there. Mm. And I don't know. I do. I really think this place could be haunted.
Nice.
What about you?
I also do. Yeah. I also truly, truly do. And most of it is because the hotel doesn't advertise it themselves, which maybe they're just so super genius that they know that they shouldn't. But honestly, every place that has paranormal activity or claims to have paranormal activity is the claims are made more by the location itself. And this place it's not like that. They're not trying to sell you on that. They're trying to sell you on what it is, just being a hotel and restaurant. So I think something's going on here. And a lot of the stories, they're not crazy stories either.
Right.
They're like, I wonder if the ghost girl is hot.
Oh, stop.
Give me a kiss. But yeah, I do. So, you know what that means?
I do.
Again, that means that
it gets the big old seal of approval.
And that's the Island Hotel. This was honestly a last-minute one for me because I was still trying to research the original one that I wanted to do. And it is proving to be very difficult, but I swear I'm going to get it done before we get out of this whole island thing.
I know.
But the Island Hotel, man, so happy we did this. And if you're out there and you're going to go to Florida and you want to visit Cedar Key, stay here and send us pictures.
Please, yes, that would be so cool.
Maybe we'll be crazy and you'll see us there. Who knows?
But I really enjoyed this one. Yeah, I really did.
This was a good one. So where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram at @forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at @forthebooze.
You can also find us on Twitter at @forthebooze. And if you'd like to listen to us over on YouTube like some people, you can find us over there at @forthebooze. And don't forget, send in your listener stories, suggestions, just to say hi, whatever, at forthebooze12@gmail.com. And rate and review, because we freaking love it.
Yes, we do. 5 stars anywhere, but Apple seems to be the best.
Yep.
And it is much appreciated to help the show move forward.
That's the one they wanted on anyways, for you to do anything in this world. But I guess, I'm going to let you go to work now.
Okay. So, I don't want to, but I will.
Well, gotta make that money.
That we do. Okay. Well, thank you everybody so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.